Hello, this is Rico Cavella, and this is your Ageless Body Self-Care Guide, your operations manual for the human body. And the topic for today's training session is how to dominate your mind. And as you're going to see, this is such an important topic because this is all about wellness and caring for your body and your mind. But if you don't get a handle on your mind, you're not going to really not going to take very good care of your body. So this is so important. And we have a great expert today. He's a marketing consultant and best-selling author. He's worked with people like Arnold Schwarzenegger and Jason Statham, as well as over 1,000 small businesses. And he has a new book out called Dominate Your Mind. So that's what's really excited me. So we're really going to go through his book. So I want to welcome to our show, Bert Martinez.
Hey, Rico, it's good to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you coming and sharing your knowledge and wisdom with us. I really appreciate that.
You bet. I'm excited to be here, and hopefully we can do some good.
Hope we can do some. Hope we can use our mind well, right?
Right.
Okay, so this is all about the mind. It's a critical component, of course. So the mind's kind of an elusive thing. It's really kind of hard to define. But do you have a definition that how you would define what the mind is?
Well, the number one thing that I tell people, it's real simple. How you feel is more important than what you know. And a bad example or a good example of a bad choice, for example, might be, we know smoking is bad for us. There isn't anybody out there smoking going, wow, I didn't know smoking was bad for you. But, it so happens that about 20 years ago, we did a survey why people smoked. And the number one answer was to be accepted, to fit in. Wow. And when and so the underlying the underlying emotional, what do you call it? I'll just say like the underlying emotion for that is love. We all want to feel love.
Right.
So if your friends are all smokers and you want to fit in with them, you're going to smoke because, you fit in. And some people use different language. Some people said, hey, I wanted to feel older. I wanted to be taken seriously. But, to me, that's all the same thing, that, you wanted to be accepted. Acceptance is about love. So how you feel is more important than what you know. Another example of that is you take somebody like an Arnold Schwarzenegger who, on one level should not have been as successful as he is.
Right.
But for the fact that he felt as though he could do this and that and this other thing. And you got this gentleman who has this, amazingly thick German accent, and just about everybody in the world can do a version of Arnold. And he was told that his name was too big, his accent is too thick, that he'd never make it in the movies. And of course, he made it in the movies. And then he got, and he got into politics, and he's achieved a lot. There's, he's got 2 charities, he's got several different businesses, and based on the way he felt. And, he felt good about himself, he believed in himself, and therefore he took the steps to do those things. So how you feel really determines your success or your lack of action, because sometimes, there's an old adage that fatigue makes cowards of us all. Right. So when we're really tired, we don't want to do what we need to do. And sometimes we'll just, we're too tired. We'll either go to bed or we'll stay in bed or whatever. And so, again, how you feel is so important. And that's kind of my, that's my simple way of looking at the mind-body connection, if you will.
Well, yeah, because we're feeling beings. And so our mind is actually part of our body. Our body is a thinking body as well. So our mind is what is like the thoughts we have that are creating our feelings and our emotions, right? So I guess we could say the mind is really just the part of our overall being that is thinking and that, which is creating the feelings, and then what we're feeling, that's the actions that we take, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And we know two things. We know that that our bodies, our movement will affect how we think. So for example, if you're depressed right now and you start doing jumping jacks for those few seconds or minute, or however you do those jumping jacks, you cannot be depressed in that state. You're actually going to feel, happy or joyful or hopeful while you're doing those jumping jacks, because you can't do jumping jacks and feel depressed. Now you might feel depressed before jumping jacks and immediately after the jumping jacks, but our motion creates emotion.
Right.
And so again, if you are stuck, by changing the way your body is, the way you're using your body, you can get insights, you can get better thoughts. There's a report. They did a report where they took people and they forced them to smile, sit in front of a mirror and smile. And this experiment, it basically showed that by just smiling, even when you don't feel like smiling, you feel better. You feel like doing something. We know that laughter, for example, laughter not only is that just a great emotion, but it also uses the body. I mean, we all have experienced a big old belly laugh. You're laughing so hard that maybe you're tearing up. Those are the best kind of laughters. And again, in that moment, you're not going to be depressed. Not only that, but your ability to be creative is tenfold. So again, our movement, our motion equals emotion. And then again, the second thing is how you feel is more important than what you know, which is what we said already. But those two things kind of are interlocked.
Yeah, so I think what I'm getting from this as well is what people need to know is that our body and our mind are really interconnected. That they could say that they'd be the same thing. So how we treat our body is affecting our mind, and how our mindset, how we're thinking about our body and our life, is affecting our body as well. So it's so important to get a handle on our mind and how we're thinking. And I always like the word mindset, because it means mindset. That means you can set your mind, and we have control over our mind. Well, let's get into your book, how you came up with, because it is so important that you need to dominate your mind. In other words, that means you want to get control over your mind, because your mind is controlling everything that's happening in your physical world, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. So the whole premise behind the book, and I did a bunch of different titles, and it came down to this. If you are not in control of your mind is dominating you. And what happens is, we know from different research authorities that we have anywhere from 50 to 80 to 100,000 different thoughts per day. And we also know from these different authorities that 80% of those thoughts, for most of us, are negative.
Yeah.
And so we're running around saying, asking these very limiting questions. Why am I so fat? Why am I always late? Why can't I find love? I can't ever make enough money. I can't seem to save enough money. And so the way your mind operates is that it is a self-fulfilling prophecy generator, if you will. So if you tell your mind enough times, I can't do this, or why am I always fat, or whatever it is, then you will manifest that in your life. You will be fat. You will not have money. You will always be running late. However, you can quickly change this, and it's very simple. You just do the reverse. So if you're always saying, why am I always running late? The reverse of that is, I look forward to running on time. I'm always running on time. I leave the house early so I can be on time. These things. And what happens is this: we are always using affirmations, either consciously or unconsciously.
Yeah.
We are always in a trance. And I say this because most of us have experienced driving either from the home to the office or from the office to home, and all of a sudden you're shocked when you arrived and you're trying to figure out, man, did I just blank out? I mean, I don't know how I got here, but we're in a trance. And so, as we're walking along our day, we're constantly talking to ourselves. And the difference, while putting my book together, I was able to talk to Schwarzenegger. I was able to talk to Joe Vitale from the movie The Secret. I interviewed a lot of different people. A lot of these people are my friends, and they're high achievers. And the number one thing is the way they think about themselves, the way they think to themselves. Call it self-talk, whatever adjective you want to use. I call it, affirmations or mantras, chronic talk, chronic thinking, however you want to, label that. Bottom line is how we talk to ourselves determine how, what we achieve, what we eat, how we feel. And one of the things, back to dominating your mind is created as your mind has an automatic stop button. And I'll give you an example of what I mean. Anytime that you come up with a good idea, there's let's say a moment, if you will, of clarity, and there's a moment of excitement. Yeah, I'm going to go do that. And then of course your mind says, stop. Who are you to do that? You'll probably fail. You shouldn't do that. People are going to make fun of you. You might lose all your money. And so what happens is,
isn't that the negative programming that coming from our subconscious mind, right?
Part of it is, I think, is that negative programming, and I think part of it is just the fact that our mind is set up to protect us.
Yeah.
And so I'll give you a perfect example. There's nothing easier than staying home all day. Staying home all day, not interacting with people, or, maybe you're behind the computer and you can post things on Facebook or Twitter or whatever, but really there's no fear. Once you step outside your comfort zone, be it your house or whatever, you start to, your senses are heightened. Okay, I'm about to go into traffic. What's going to happen? I'm going to the office or whatever. But, we have this automatic stop built in, and it's there to protect us. And we have to become uncomfortable. We have to become comfortable with being uncomfortable. We got to stop listening to that voice that says, hey, don't do that. And so one of my affirmations, if you will, is that, fear is my action button. When I'm afraid of doing something, I do it because fear is my action button. So if I'm afraid to talk to somebody, boom, I know I got to talk to somebody. If I'm afraid to do something, I must do it. And so it's like anything else. It's practice. It's practice. And so again, we are constantly self-talking. We're constantly using affirmations. We're constantly using prayer or mantras or whatever you want to call it. But that negative self-talk, 80, 90, 1,000 times a day, does penetrate our psyche, does manifest itself around us. You're in the health and fitness, market. That there's tons of people who'll tell you every day, I've never been able to lose weight. I struggle to lose weight, or I struggle to put on weight. I can't seem to ever build my muscle. I don't ever have any energy. And they say that with such a strong emotional
conviction.
Thank you. That, yeah. They're not going to achieve until they change that chronic thinking, that chronic self-talk.
Yeah, change that mindset. I like what you said too about goals. If your goals don't really challenge you and make you some fear, it's not a good goal. It's not a strong enough goal, right? Yeah.
That's right. That's right. And Dr. Joe Vitale, he loves to tell people, your goals should scare you a little bit and excite you a lot.
Yeah.
And so there is that mixture there. I mean, there is, I don't care who you are, whether it's, Mickey Mantle or Mickey Mouse, no matter where you are in life, you always hit a certain level of fear, because sooner or later, everything kind of becomes normal to us. So if let's say you are a public speaker, well, you've been doing it for a few years. Public speaking is no longer something that scares you. It probably excites you.
Right.
But now, if you take that same public speaker and say, hey, let's write a book,
Yeah.
there may be a panic there. He doesn't
Yeah.
know what to do, or she doesn't know where to start, or whatever. So, you know, we can all build little routines of security, and our mind wants us to be safe. It wants us to be secure, and so it will dominate us into staying in our comfort zone if we don't dominate our mind.
Yeah, that's well said. I get that's really well said, Bert. Yeah. So, in my understanding, what I like to tell people is that even though we're getting, it's about awareness, isn't it? It's about awareness of what we're thinking and and what the words we're saying. You know, I like to call this. You know, we hear so much about fake news these days, but the real fake news that we have to worry about is exactly what you're talking about. Is this negative self-talk all the time? That's the fake news you have to look out for, not what's on the nightly news, right?
Absolutely correct. You know, and I'm glad you mentioned the nightly news. Look, a lot of that is there to distract us. You know,
Big distraction.
what's so funny is I am one of my favorite shows to watch on Netflix is an old show called The West Wing. It's about 30 years old, 25 maybe, and it's got a huge cast of people. It was on the air for 7 years. Martin Sheen's on it as the president, and it's so funny because it's fairly realistic, and they're talking about the same stuff we're talking about today: taxes, healthcare reform, dealing with the Palestinians and Israel, dealing with what do you call it? ISIS, dealing with what do you call it? Insurgents and all this other stuff.
Immigration.
And it's like, wow, in 25 years, the news really hasn't changed that much.
We haven't made much progress, really, have we?
Yeah, but if you let yourself be distracted by the news, definitely will add fear into your life, and it really takes a lot of precious moments away from you. So I'm a big believer in not really watching the news.
Yeah.
If you're interested, let's say in financial information, you know, there's a lot of different websites that can gather that information and send it to you. No matter, you know, whatever it is you like to keep aware of, there's a lot of ways of doing that without necessarily getting bogged down in the news. But bottom line is, yeah, we are being bombarded all the time by a lot of negativity. And so we have to be, like you said, we have to be aware of it and decide what I'm going to choose to listen to. But I do like what you're saying about, that fake news in our heads. That is the biggest number one problem that everybody has. It's the biggest global problem that we have. It's the biggest problem in our homes. It's why our kids are having problems at school. Suicide is nothing but somebody who convinced themselves, they literally talked themselves into doing that. Over a period of weeks or days, that thinking unfortunately got more emotional, more conviction, more clear, and then they did it or attempted to do it.
Right.
But that is an alarming thing. If you can convince yourself that you should die based on how you're thinking, you can convince yourself that you can achieve any goal you set the same way.
That's such a good point, Bert. That's such a good point. In other words, that just shows you how important our mind is and how our mind is dominating us. So you've got to get a handle and dominate your mind. And on the other point that you made is so true. I think the biggest actually real challenge for humanity is lack of expectation of what's possible in our lives. Absolutely right.
Absolutely. You know what? Again, my friend Dr. Joe Vitale, he likes to sign his stuff with expect miracles.
Yeah. And
that's a great expectation. Expect miracles. Every day somebody is doing the impossible. Every day. I like to look at Elon Musk. I wrote about him in the book, and here's a guy that's done the impossible multiple times. He was one of the co-founders of PayPal, and his vision for PayPal was to have an online bank. and PayPal was even buying a bank, and then there was some. He ended up losing control, and they ended up selling, and he made a small fortune off of it. I think like $100 million or something. But his vision was much bigger, and now here we are in the future. This took place 25 years ago, or 20 years ago. In the future, now we see online banking everywhere. But he saw that, 20 years ago, 15 years ago, whenever it was, and then he's got this crazy idea of having electric cars that are not only functional but good looking.
Yeah.
That people want to drive, and they said it was impossible; it would never work.
And they're good for the environment, right?
Yeah, and of course, not only did he create Tesla, but now he's actually manufacturing batteries for the three major auto makers. He's actually creating batteries that people will in these small, let's say, rural or underdeveloped countries can actually plug into a battery that he's creating, so they'll have electricity for a year, without having to depend on anything other than this battery.
Yeah, that's really great stuff. So I think what we're getting from this, Bert, is that people that are highly successful, they've learned to dominate their mind. I think that's the message we want to get to people. So and you don't have to be as great as doing things that seem super great, but if you want to have a successful, joyful, happy life and make a difference in your life, you got to get control over your mind. You got to dominate your mind. So in just the last few minutes here, Bert, give us a few tips or couple little strategies that will help people get started dominating their mind right now.
Absolutely. So first of all, you can right now, you can go to dominatingyourmind.com, and because of this interview, you can get the book for free, just pay some shipping and handling. So it's dominatingyourmind.com. But since we're focused on health and fitness, one of the affirmations that I would have somebody look at is, they're all simple. And if you start becoming aware of how you think, you'll realize that all your thoughts are very simple. So this is a real simple one. I eat for health and energy. Real simple affirmation. I eat for health and energy. And so when you start believing that you eat for health and energy, and you start repeating this, 3, 4, 5, 10 times a day, you will start making better food choices. You will start eating for health and energy. Not necessarily that you're going to eat crap, not that you're going to all of a sudden start eating grass or anything like that, but maybe not have that second piece of pie. Maybe start having more protein. Maybe start having more greens and fresh fruit, because you're wanting to eat for health and energy. And so that's one of the big ones. So when I do a health type of event, that's one of the ones that we focus on. The other one, and this is one that is sorely lacking here in the great US of A, and that is I sleep for my health and energy. I sleep for my health and energy. Again, very simple. I sleep for my health and energy. And you can see that those two tie in together. And then my third and final affirmation is I am moving towards my goals today. I am moving towards my goals today. These are three very simple, not complicated, but if you practice them just in 3 or 4 days, you will start eating better. You'll start sleeping more. You'll start being aware of what you're doing to your body, and you will notice that you're starting to move towards your goals. Of course, in order for you to start moving towards your goals, you have to have goals. But we all have some goals, either written down or in our heads, that we'd like to achieve. So that's not too hard. But bottom line, it's really how you're talking to yourself 24/7 that is going to make or break you.
That's it. That's so well said. So I think that's really the message. You got to get aware of what you're saying, what you're thinking. And by doing these affirmations, as Bert was telling you, that's how you can get started. And as always, we want to remind you that there's a whole PDF that comes with it, with your video here, how you can contact all of our experts, how you can contact Bert, how you can get his book, how you can learn more about all the things he has to offer. So we really recommend that you stay connected to our experts, and you can learn more. And so it's all about, I hope you got the message that it's all about your mind. So if you don't dominate your mind's going to be dominating your life. So get control of your mind. The very last thing I always like to ask people, Bert, is what one big idea do you have that can maybe motivate people to actually take the action on what we've just talked about?
Well, and I think the big idea is look at one thing that you'd like to change in your life. Just look at that one thing that you want to change in your life. Maybe it's money, maybe it's weight loss, maybe it's weight gain, maybe it's a relationship, but look at one thing and start being aware of how you're talking about that one thing. Maybe it's just getting to places on time or early, and then create an affirmation to change that one thing. And so it's whatever you're aware of your negative thinking, what is a positive to change? What would be a positive affirmation that would change that one thing, make it more real, move you step closer to having that? And it could be as simple as, you know, I meet people to help me achieve this one thing. I leave for my appointments 30 minutes early, so I show up ahead of time. These simple affirmations, again, they're not necessarily the easiest thing, but they are simple. They don't take batteries. They don't take any real training. You can master them, and just pick that one thing, start there. And as you develop that affirmation muscle, then you can add another thing, then another thing.
Really good. Thank you so much, Bert. That was so good. So I hope you really enjoyed this. And remember, so you can get control of your mind. You can dominate your mind. And you can dominate your life. So thanks for being here.
You bet. Thank you for having me.